Like they said something about our mama or something like that. The candidates are not your mama. You know what I mean? Everybody deserves to, in that position, should be able to get criticized the same way. So that's why I thank you for everything that you're doing and exposing the whole picture, the whole truth.
All right, so let me jump to T then. T, the name Ice Cube was mentioned, and Ice Cube, surprisingly to a lot of people, has become a voice in this election. He's really dug in. What did you think about what you saw with that, and how would you describe the public reaction and then your reaction to that reaction?
I was very excited with Ice Cube, man. And I knew as soon as it came out that he worked with the Trump administration, it was going to be, oh Lord, here it comes. Because I just know that there's a concerted effort, especially to keep Black people and Black men from only engaging in one side and not the other. And to me, this is plantation politics. Me personally, my thing is Black people should be an independent community. We could develop plans for both sides. When we have a community that only talks to one side and ignores the other side, that guarantees every 4 years you will be ignored, guaranteed. The Democrats looking like Black folks, I got their vote. They pledged us their vote before we even offered them anything. So let's not even worry about them. All to the Latinos, all to another group. Then the Republicans are looking at like, well, Black folks don't even talk to us at all. So what is the point of even developing plans for them? Nobody comes to us. We see when one of their own tries to come with them, their own community smashes them down before they even can allow their agenda to even come into fruition. So there's no point. And I think that right there has been detrimental to the Black community as a whole. So I commend Ice Cube, and I'm like, the brothers who are independent, we need to stand by him. I like that he's going to independent Black media versus the outside mainstream media, because their narrative is just, Negro, you supposed to be a Democrat. I'm not trying to hear nothing else. Like, that's their narrative. You know what I'm saying? So when Ice Cube is going to you know what I'm saying? He's even going to, ADOS or, other independent YouTubers. I respect that. But yeah, that's just my thing. And to be honest with you, I'm probably the only one on the panelists that voted for Trump. I'm not some hardcore right-wing Republican. I am an independent. I view both candidates every 4 years, and I'm a strictly policy voter. Just when it comes to Trump and Black people, and I'm not going to be going to policy right now, but I can later on. I knew that Donald Trump would shake Black people up. I just knew it, because to me, I feel like under Democrats, our people goes to sleep. It's like we're in La La Land. It's like all the problems with police brutality, economic problems. We don't talk about it because we got, Barack Obama and, Michelle Obama dancing in the White House, and we're not doing anything about it. So, that's just my stance and my point of view.
Okay, so Faye, when you hear the words of like plantation politics, what does that mean to you? It's funny, you say a term like that, and I think everybody has an instant reaction of what that is. You've been pretty vocal about the way politics runs in America. How would you describe plantation politics, and what do you think are some of the challenges that we're having right now as a people? Oh, Faye is muted. Let me see if I can hit a little button. Faye, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you guys clearly. I just want to make sure that you can hear me.
Yeah.
Okay, good. For me, what's wrong in politics is how we do politics. And that's where that plantation mentality comes from. I feel that a lot of Black people don't know what politics are and exactly what it is politics are supposed to produce. And there's nothing that has revealed this very fact more than the last 3.5 years of the Donald Trump administration, and exactly everything that we see and read every day across the social media feeds. There's this idea that politics is going to fix how we see others and how we see ourselves. And from using that psychology, I feel like it's giving away our advantage with pretty much everything. It's basically, we have nothing to leverage with because we're giving the advantage away. People don't understand that politics has to do with decision-making and power relations where it concerns our group, or all groups rather. but as it pertains to resources, personal interest, and status, yet we treat it like it's an American Idol contest. And a lot of that has to do with how we approach politics. We approach it emotionally. We use emotion to influence just about everything. And it has affected how we do politics. And those in power know this and have used it to their benefit, not ours. They know that race is a hot button for us and that it increases their support. And the Democratic Party knows this better than any other party. And they do this every single election season, to the point where it's actually, from us, again, I have to go to the psychology standpoint of it. It's kind of created this Pavlovian effect where our response is conditioned to stimulus or certain stimulus. It's kind of like, if anyone wants to look up the Pavlovian effect, it's where he kind of exercised this experiment on his dogs, where he would jingle keys and they would go running, or he would make sure just do certain things to see how they would respond to certain stimulus, such as colors and sounds, and they would come running. And a lot of that has to do with how we respond when it comes to race. The media knows it, the Democratic Party knows it, and this has played a significant role in how we do politics, and it has affected us so badly.
Wow. So it's almost, you mentioned Pavlovian. Yeah, Pavlov's dog. Yeah, in case
Yes.
for those who don't know, Pavlov's dog was trained to start salivating every time he heard a bell, because he was trained to associate the ringing of the bell with food. So eventually he started ringing the bell and there would be no food, but the dog would start salivating because it was a connected, conditioned response. And it sounds like what you're saying is that that we have maybe these dog whistles, or we have these triggers that people use in media, like, oh, racism, they're going to come get you. I do remember Joe Biden saying a few years ago, where he said the Republicans, they're going to have you all back in chains or something like that, which I thought was a real interesting sort of thing to say. So Jade, I want to ask you, so, when Faye mentioned the emotionality, right, which maybe we can all critique and talk about. Everybody's emotional, right? All the communities have emotional people. If you look at, whites and Jewish people and Latino people, everybody, the whole country seems emotional about this election. So what's different about Black people? What is it? And I know you're an activist. I know you're out in the street. I mean, literally out in the street, fighting against the issues that affect our community. And so why do you think politics has not been the solution for us on almost any level? Like, that seems like nothing has moved forward despite all this voting that we do and everything else. What do you think?
Yeah, thank you for having me again on this panel, again, 2 years in a row. And last year I really missed Sister Tesla, and I ended up being the only woman on the panel, but I feel like I held it down and I represented for us. So here's the thing. I think that we have misconstrued the function and the purpose of politics, and we get that mixed up with freedom, right? So people think that we can, like, politics is the only way or strategy or tool to achieve freedom. And freedom itself is controlling the economics, politics, and culture of our environment. And this is what, Professor James Smalls teaches us. Without those three things, we cannot achieve freedom. But we cannot, we don't have anything to leverage politically if we don't have the economic foundation, which is why power and arms is so important. In terms of the emotionality, listen, people have whole think tanks to study Black culture, behavior, history, triggers, etc. And so what I know that, like, the Democratic Party especially is really, really good at doing is manipulating and abusing Black people, and, throwing out the word race, or throwing out some of these buzzwords that gets people either feeling really, really good or feeling really, really bad, to kind of control their political behavior. And at this point, what we're saying right now, in this election, many Black people will actually vote, and many of us will, do not feel obligated or controlled or beholden to a Democratic Party, especially. And I'm speaking as a representative for now on the Democratic County Commission in Brooklyn. I am completely done with the Democratic Party altogether, and will follow along in my father's footsteps, who was also an organizer, and just be an independent after the election. But I say all of this to say is that, like, we have to kind of get on code, figure out exactly what it is that we want. Shout out to our brother Ice Cube for advocating for a Black agenda. And we have to have, like, independent political structures in place as a long-term strategy. But right now, what these people are doing, they're manipulating Black people and trying to voter shame Black folks and voter shame, you know, the Black non-voter or the Black swing voter to say, hey, this Democrat plantation owns you. And then you have Republicans on the other side using race and certain buzzwords to do the same thing. At this point, we have to all get on code and literally be runaway slaves from this two-party political system.
Okay, so let me go back to Itan on that, because you know, you talk about first of all, you know, Jay, you come off to me as a revolutionary, you know, or you remind me of like with in fact, actually, you use that word revolutionary to describe yourself. You're a revolutionary, unapologetically Black host, you know, and I think, you know, and what's interesting is that I know, Itan, I know you're I would describe you as a revolutionary. I've seen you take, you know, really positions, strong positions that were based on your conscience, and it didn't matter that everybody disagreed. I referred to you earlier as kind of the original Colin Kaepernick in the NBA, because that's literally what you were doing. You know, and you've mentioned though that you know, as a community, we got to go and go that Biden route, like that you know, when we talk about, I don't want to paraphrase your words, but people have talked about the lesser of two evils and things like that. And I find it interesting that you seem to support the Biden route. At the same time, you haven't condemned Ice Cube. A lot of people have condemned him. A lot of people just said, you know, like, what are you doing? You're going to cost us the election. Can you talk about that a little bit? Why you're doing what you're doing, and then also how that juxtaposes with your view on Ice Cube?
Well, I think a lot of times people feel that you have to pick one side, and that's the side that you're rolling with, regardless of what the side does or anything. And that's just not how I think. There's some things that I agree with Biden. There's some things that I disagree with Biden. I mean, I was actual surrogate for Obama for both terms. I organized fundraisers the first term with athletes to be able to, you know, fundraise for Obama. But I also was critical of Obama. There was a long laundry list of things that I disagreed with him throughout both presidencies, and I had no problem voicing them. But as far as Ice Cube,
let me interrupt you and ask you, what did you do? Give me a couple of examples of things you disagree with Obama on. I'd be curious. You met Obama, I know that. So tell me about that.
Well, no. Well, I was a surrogate, so I worked with him a couple of times, and and everything like that. But there was a long list. I mean, I could go, especially foreign policy. So the foreign policy, I don't think, unfortunately, changes no matter who the president is. You know, there's a specific framework that they're going to have. They're going to be pro-Israel. They're going to be, I mean, there's just certain things that are going to happen no matter who is in office, or Republican or Democrat, with the foreign policy. So that I definitely disagreed with. I disagreed with the fact that it was difficult for him to be able to be the president for Black people, but he had no problem being the president for the LGBT community. That's something that I've been very vocal about having an issue with. I mean, he would reach out and say things and interject things about the LGBT community in every speech. And sometimes it didn't even have nothing to do with that. Like, he's talking about Mandela, or he's talking about, you know what I mean? And he interjects that in, but then they say, okay, we can't be the president for Black people. So like, my point is, there's a laundry list of criticisms that I had for President Obama. So I'm not afraid to criticize anyone. And I think that one of the things, I mentioned it earlier, is the hero worship that we get into, no matter who that hero is. And we think that hero is you can't criticize them. And I just don't buy into that at all. So going back to your question about Ice Cube, I mean, I understand what Ice Cube is doing. That's why I haven't, lambasted him or anything like that, what you see a lot of other people doing. I understand what he's trying to do. I agree with a lot of the points that he was making. As I was watching him kind of make the media rounds, I'm listening and I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Cube said that the goal has to be that we continue to push our agenda through no matter who is elected. I 100% agree with that. You know what I mean? I mean, he said we're not supposed to just give our vote away and get nothing back in return. Again, I 100% agree with that. I mean, Malcolm X used to talk about that in his speech where he's talking about political chumps, that we can't be political chumps. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but he was like, they give you nothing and you give them your vote. He's like, that makes you a chump. Again, paraphrasing, but I 100% agree with that. So then when I moved to, okay, the parts that I disagree maybe with Cube is maybe, it's days. until the election, maybe that card, and we talked about it when we discussed everything, the card of making you come to their side in exchange for your vote. I think that was a card that was played earlier, not necessarily days before the election, but it doesn't mean that I disagree with it in its entirety. I think that yes, Biden should be able to list the different ways of the contract that he agrees with and what he's going to come to that side. I agree with that. I would just say, do that process earlier. And I know they started the process earlier. And also it wasn't Cube who put it out there, who said that that was the Trump administration trying to use Cube. And they said, see, Cube agrees with us. See, Cube's been working with us. They blew the whistle on that. We wouldn't even known anything about that if they didn't do that. And then they want to say, okay, well, now 50 Cent's with us, and change the picture and have the hat on and doctor it up to make it say "Make America Great Again." That's the Trump administration. And the thing about it is, I think that a lot of people reacted immediately because they've seen the Trump administration do that before with Black icons. They say them do that with Kanye West, Jim Brown. You can go down the list, Ray Lewis, Steve Harvey, and they want to use them as a prop to say, look, this is my African-American friend and he's working with us. So then when they said Ice Cube, like, no, not Ice Cube. Ice Cube's not going that route. So I think a lot of people reacted before even seeing all the details of it. That's why before I even reacted, I wanted to listen to Ice Cube. I listened to Chris Broussard when you interviewed him. I listened to, different interviews where Ice Cube is explaining. Listen to him go on Roland Martin. We're listening to him go on all these different aspects. And so I could say, okay, I see what he's trying to do. I'm not going to just go ahead and say the brothers are coon, say the brothers on their side, say the brother, because that's not what I'm seeing. So I just think sometimes people have to take the time to be able to research before automatically jumping out, because that's what the Trump administration was doing. They were saying he's on our side. You know what I mean? He's with us.
Let me jump in and let me ask Tesla about this. As a political analyst, and Etan's right. The Trump administration, they did distort the reality. It's fascinating to me that we got to the point where people will say, "Oh, they had a meeting with me," and that somehow implies, "Oh, now they're hanging out together," right? It's like going on a date and somebody says, "Oh, y'all get married," or "Oh, y'all having sex." No, we sat down and we had coffee together. We're not dating, we're not sleeping together, we're not getting married. But that's the way politics is almost looking now, that you sit and have coffee with somebody, they think that y'all get married. So and to Etan's point, Tesla, when he mentioned how the Republicans are using that, they're using Kanye, they're using Cube, they use Jim Brown, etc. Well, do you think it's interesting that when the Democrats use celebrities, we don't hear that same backlash? Right? Have you noticed that? What are your thoughts on that? It seems like both sides use celebrities, right? I remember when Hillary was running for office, and there was a big Beyonce Jay-Z concert right before she ran for office, and they're hanging out with celebrities all the time. So why is it more acceptable on the left but not so acceptable on the right?
Absolutely. Well, first, you are absolutely right. Both sides use celebrities. So let's not pretend that one does it more than the other. It's interesting that you talked about Cube. I did a commentary actually echoing Mr. Thomas's thoughts, only I said it a little bit more hoodish. And I will recap to you what I said. In fact, Willie D brought it up during his interview with Ice Cube. And this was my issue with Ice Cube. And what I really want people to understand is the same group of people that said, do not believe anything that comes out of Trump's mouth, do not believe anything that comes out of Trump's surrogate's mouth, somehow believed Katrina Pearson's tweet, who first put it out there, that said Ice Cube was quote unquote working with the Trump administration. So I asked the question that if you don't believe anything that Trump says or anything that his surrogate says, why is it that you were quick to believe what Katrina Pearson said without allowing Ice Cube an opportunity to explain his position? I have no issue with people not liking what Cube did. I have no issue with people having an issue with, is he the best person to articulate the message? I am a huge supporter of Ice Cube. I don't think that he was in the best position in the Roland Martin interview. I think he did better with you. I think he did better with Willie D. I do think that those are complex materials that an expert should be sitting by him at all times. That goes for Diddy, that goes for 50 Cent, that goes for anybody else that doesn't do this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But what I want wanted to point out to the people is just the simple fact that Cube has been down with the hood for the last 40 days, just a simple 40 years, just for the simple fact that he was the first nigga with an attitude, for the simple fact that he was the first one that said, fuck the police, while everybody else on the internet was standing back and standing by. That alone should have allowed Ice Cube an opportunity to be able to explain. So they pushed him into a corner to make something when he clearly said, I do not support President Trump. I am not working with quote unquote. The discussion was about the plan. And they said, okay, we'll make an adjustment. If people really ask people from the right, like Pastor Darrell Scott, he will tell you that plan, that Cube didn't really have an impact on that plan at all. That plan was already put out. The small adjustment that was made had nothing really to do with Ice Cube, according to what he says. Now, we don't know if that's true or not. I interviewed him on my show. The point is this. People should have an opportunity to speak, particularly Black men. We cannot advocate. I work with Attorney Benjamin Crump. A lot of folks, especially in this space, disagree with Attorney Benjamin Crump. And just so you guys know, I work with him because I disagree with him. He keeps people around him that can center him on messages that come from the ground, not from the grassroots, but from the ground, the concrete. And this is the thing, Dr. Watkins, that people are failing to understand on what we did to Ice Cube. If we are going to say that Jacob Blake should have had an opportunity to explain before he got shot 7 times in the back, why is it that we criminalize Ice Cube? If we're saying that Breonna Taylor's boyfriend was truthful when he said he did not hear them say the police, why should we criminalize Ice Cube? If we are going to believe Trayvon Martin when he said that he was attacked first, why are we criminalizing Ice Cube? If we are going to believe that Mike Brown, that they said his hands were up and he said hands up, don't shoot, why are we criminalizing Ice Cube? And that's what happened. We did the same thing that white supremacy does to Black men time and time again. You took one person's word, you took that and you created an entire conspiracy. You reinvented the 94 crime bill all over again and locked him up behind a conspiracy, not being caught with the dope, not being caught at the trap, simply because somebody got on the stand and said Cube did it. And our own community took that. Now, once Cube has explained, yes, this is my position, I believe this, then yes, Mr. Thomas can say, Cube, I don't think it was the right time. I think you should have did better. I think you should have partnered with Dr. Claude Anderson, whoever, whatever. We all know that Cube was working with experts behind the scene. Those of us who are in this space, we know that he's working with folks. I just want people to really put it into the picture that we can't be on both sides. And I told that, and I'm gonna say this and shut up. I told that to a lot of influencers who are out there speaking against him. Every last one of the influencers that have spoke against Ice Cube have also had a lie told on them on the internet. Every last one. And when I told them that, when I said, you were just complaining and crying on the Breakfast Club that somebody took your words and made a lie on you. I've had it done. I've had New York Times, Politico, Washington Post create an entire lie about me, whatever, even asking for my comment. Everybody that's been in this space, in any media, especially mainstream, has had some lie that someone has taken and ran. They said I was a racist. They said I was an immigrant bastard because I said if people are going to worry about people on the other side of the wall, they need to focus on Black men who have been locked up. More Black men have been locked up than those who are in prison since 1850. That was a fact. It didn't make me anti-immigrant. It didn't make me a racist. It made me standing up for Black people. But 3 articles were written about that, and they forced my contract to be canceled. They didn't give a damn about me being a single mom, depending on healthcare insurance. They didn't give a damn if I was able to take care of myself because no one asked for my comment. So I hope that all of you in your individual spaces, those who are listening and those of us on that panel, draw the conclusion so that people can see exactly what happened with what we did with Cube. It is so much bigger than just if he's working with Trump or not. I don't give a damn who he's working with. The bottom line is this election is already decided, period. People have made their minds up. The question is, are we going to hang Black men without giving them an opportunity to speak?
So speaking of giving a Black man an opportunity to speak, Tariq, I'd like to ask you, do you feel as a Black man that you're not trusted, or what's it like to be you? I see a lot of times you have some complex opinions on issues and not always popular. Do you feel vilified for it? How does that feel to be in your shoes when you're talking about these matters? I think my brother is still muted.
Okay.
There you go.
No, I definitely see that Black men are not allowed to speak. And, I told y'all, like, my main focus is media because, I feel like media is what a lot of our people get our talking points from. And because a lot of our people don't own the media, like, I don't know if there's a mainstream media network that is like BET, for example, that is owned Black from top to bottom. So I know there's a white overhead telling them what to do. The same thing with Fox Soul. You can see all these Black folks on Fox Soul, but I believe Farrakhan is not even allowed to come on there. Now, if that's a truly owned Black network, you don't ban your own people from coming on a network.
Wait. Fox Soul's not Black owned, right? It's owned by Fox, isn't it? I mean, the Fox.
That's correct.
It's not. It's not Black
Fox
owned. So
just for clarity, it's by the big Fox.
Yeah, go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the thing is, you will never see an intelligent Black man speaking on Black issues on either network. And like I said, even though I voted for Trump, but even if I look on the Black men from the right, like they speak about Black issues from like a pro-right conservative Trump, that's why we got to side with the Republicans. And I feel like they don't relate conservative issues to Black people. It's like the police are always right, Black people are always wrong. And I'm like, yo, you guys keep talking like this, and this is exactly why Black folks don't listen to y'all. Like, y'all always bash them. The same thing with Candace Owens. Like, I like that she goes after liberals, but I'm just like, your audience is 99% white. Who are you talking to? Like, you're not even talking to your people. You got Brexit, but when you go to Brexit, it's like 99% white. Your people aren't there. So you're talking about, Black people's got my back, but no one is there. So, but yeah, like I said, it's like that. It's always those extremes, either all the way to the right, all the way to the left. But, you get a Black man like Ice Cube who shows up on CNN. And at the beginning, before Chris Chroma asked Ice Cube the question, he said, first of all, I need to correct your introduction because that's wrong. I did not go to Trump. Both campaigns came to me. Just correcting the lies that it's just throwing at him. And it's that fear that I would say, and this may be a little controversial, I would say more towards left than the right, that they don't like Black men speaking. Is because, when Black men speak, they kind of raise everyone's awareness. Like, we've been sitting up here voting for this party for all this time, and we're getting nothing in return. And it doesn't matter if they call him a sexist. It doesn't matter if they call him a misogynist. Like how they try to do Ice Cube's plan, saying, well, you didn't put something in there about Black women, so why do you consult with Black women? Ice Cube was on Fox, so he said, well, I said Black people. Aren't Black people Black women? They was like, no. You see, I'm sorry. I feel like that's a white liberal women talking for those sisters. I just hate to say that because you are separating yourself from the Black community. Why do we have to write plans where it's Black people, then Black men, Black gays, Black transgenders, Black disabled? Why can't we just all come together as one loop? So yes, and me personally, that's why I'm just very careful also of just talking about, Trump being a white supremacist or even focusing on white supremacy in general, because what's happening is a lot of our people are operating out of fear. The reason why Joe Biden gets a lot away with, saying that you ain't Black, going to the Latino community and tell them that y'all aren't as diverse, Black folks aren't as diverse of y'all, and still getting away with it, because our people feel like Trump is some Hitler Nazi that's going to put us in concentration camps. And that's why a lot of Black people are like, well, Democrats are bad, but this is some scary white man who told the Proud Boys to stand back and stand by. And when he gets elected, they're going to go kill all Black people. So we're going to side with Biden. And that's why I'm like, Black folks, we got to be careful of just always, just ascribing Trump to these racist things, because you're not going to reach Black people on the left. They're going to say it's almost like a cover for the Democrat corruption, because that white man is a racist Nazi. So I don't even care. So yeah, that, I know I went on the tangent, but yeah, that's pretty much where I'm coming from.
Okay, go ahead.
Can I, because Brother Tariq, because this is the second time, and this is in all love, that you keep saying, you keep kind of pushing it to the left. And so this is the right and the left. The right is no better. And I'm not trying to say you have an agenda, because I get it, you're a conservative, but there's conservatives that disagree that Black men have an opportunity, or Black women that have an opportunity to speak. I interviewed Sonny Johnson, who is someone that I respect highly in the conservative space, and she agrees with you, saying that the Candace Owens that is not the true voice of Black conservatism. And I interviewed Pastor Scott, who says that Black men don't have a chance to speak in the conservative movement. So there's not this, oh yeah, it's just on the left, and then there's all these opportunities on the right. Dr. Tim Johnson, who passed away, I don't know if any of you knew him, but he was I went to Congressional Black Caucus boot camp. He was the only Republican that was invited in 2010. He passed away several years ago. But Dr. Boyce, you should go look at some of his, you want to talk about a real brother for real. He was the president of the Republican Party, I believe in North Carolina. And he talked about how Black men and Black women don't have an opportunity to speak in the conservative movement. It's not as if they don't know that Black men like you exist. It's not if they don't know that Sonny Johnson exists. They banned Sonny Johnson from getting on Fox News. Lawrence had to force Sonny Johnson on a panel with us because Sonny Johnson talks about economics. She talks about Black men. She talks about Black women. She talks about all of the things outside of the talking points that they only want Black people to talk about. So it is not better on the right. It is not better on the left. This is a collective issue that we have on all media outlets. Everyone has an angle. I've been on National Fox News probably 80 times this year. I am well aware that they have an angle. I am well aware that they like it when I say something about Democrats. I'm not confused. What I tell people is listen outside of my 5-minute segment where I challenge Democrats and go listen to me in complete and see that I don't have no loyalty to either one. So we have to be careful as we're speaking to family in this space that they know that either one is not better, because it seems, and again, I'm not accusing you of anything. I just know that I love Sonny and I's interview because for a whole hour, we didn't mention Trump or Biden one time. Let's see if we can have a conversation without mentioning Trump or Biden or political one time. When they don't trust us, when they hear our messages start to get slanted towards one versus the other, and that's why we're losing the
I haven't heard from Jade or Faye for a minute, so I'd like to go to Jade and ask Jade. First of all, I'll say this: two things. One, this panel was extra long for a reason, so everybody gets a chance to talk. So even if you don't get a chance to talk for a little bit, just know you will be heard. My last resort is to interrupt, because I really want you to flesh it out. But I want to make sure everybody is heard, right? Because we talked about, as Tesla's saying, certain people aren't being heard in this election. Certain people aren't being heard in this society, right? And that's one of the reasons. In fact, actually, when we talked about Fly New being queen and what we were trying to do, we realized there's a whole segment of Black women that aren't being heard. You hear from Black women, but certain types of Black women, right? And speaking on that, Jade, you had mentioned you talked extensively about Biden's interview with people like Cardi B, right? Remember Biden interviewed with Charlemagne? It didn't go so well. Then the next thing you know, it's like Cardi B, and then it becomes these softer sorts of conversations. Why do you think Joe Biden wanted to talk to Cardi B, and what does that really say in terms of how the politicians view the Black community in general?
My personal opinion about Joe Biden is that he's an anti-Black racist, as well as I would call Donald J. Trump the anti-Christ and anti-Black racist. The reason why, he would sit down with a character or caricature who bastardizes Black culture, pretends to be Black, and, shows some of the most horrific portrayals of Black women, he would sit down with Cardi B because, I think personally, Joe Biden and what the Democrat establishment has been doing, especially in this election, is pandering to the Black vote and playing on stereotypes that we are dumb, underinformed, that we're going to follow behind, someone who's not an expert or who doesn't have any real commitment to or participation in like making change within Black society, that they can prop up a celebrity, someone who is not speaking about anything constructive. Now, there are celebrities out there that I do support, like Ice Cube and stuff, that are doing things that are constructively advocating for a Black agenda. But one, it's possible, I don't know, maybe Joe Biden thinks that it's funny. And then two, like the Democrat establishment, they know that if they put up an icon in Black society that people idolize, that the Black vote would most likely swing their way. So what they're actually doing is pandering to the Black vote and undermining our intelligence, ignoring our issues, giving us more benign neglect, and saying, hey, we will we'll put up Cardi B to sit and ask and interview me about issues around race and racism, and it becomes like a joke, and a lot of Black folks fall for that. I didn't appreciate that Senator Kamala Harris showed up in a versus with Monica and Brandy to say, hey, ladies, hi, surprise appearance. Don't forget to vote, meaning, which is code for vote for us liberals and Democrats. Now, some people ate that up. They thought that was great. And they're like, oh my God, she's so down. But I'm just seeing through all of it. You're not coming to us, talking to us about anything tangible or specific. We want policies that are going to empower the Black community. We are owed a debt in this country. We want our reparations. But instead of Biden and his campaign talking about those specific things, they'll just push out, BS or crumbs or things that will get some Black folks riled up to say, hey, we're going to get the Black vote, or we're showing solidarity with the Black community, but not offering us anything. No protections. We need to be a protected status or a protected class in this country. As I said, we're owed a debt, but you're talking about doing all of these things for the LGBT community, for women, undocumented immigrants, as if we are supposed to accept being a permanent underclass as foundational Black Americans in this country, while everyone else reaps the benefits. Like, we're not here for it, right? And so, quite frankly, I don't think the Biden campaign gives a damn about Black folk any more than the Trump administration gives a damn about Black folk. Now, what I have to say, what our brother Tariq just stated on the panel, I think that both of these devils, in my opinion, are just as bad. The white supremacy just looks different. But I'm not going to ignore the fact that we are living under a system of anti-Black racism and white supremacy. And we're also not going to pretend like the rhetoric that's coming out of the base of Trump supporters and his administration is not a real imminent threat to the safety of Black people. Just like we're not going to pretend that if Biden or Kamala Harris get into the White House, that they're not going to lock all of our asses up, because they're also out here trying to fund the police just as much as the Trump campaign. So either way, unless we deviate and liberate ourselves from this two-party system and being owned by, one plantation or the other, and not becoming empowered as independent, free-thinking Black people that are practicing self-determination, we're going to continue to find ourselves in the same situation that we're in right now.
Faye, I'm going to share a thought, and I'm going to try to shape it into a question. And I know you're smart, so you're going to have something to say on this. I heard what Jay just said, where she said that it's two types of white supremacy. It's just version A or version B, McDonald's or Burger King, Coke or Pepsi, right? And and I wonder if we can even refine that. When you think about it, if you go into the Republican space, maybe you're dealing with white supremacy, but it could just be called Republican supremacy. Whatever white Republicans believe, that's what you're under, that regime. Or you jump over to Democratic supremacy. And I find that fascinating, because in neither one of those spaces do you really have any true Black power. There's no real Black equity. And the question is, can we really blame a Candace Owens for working for her boss? We know who her boss is. We know what her goal is. Her goal is to get Black people to either not vote or to vote Republican so that her boss can win the election, so she and her white boyfriend or husband can buy a bigger house, right? We know that that's what it is, right? And then the Democratic side, same thing. So the question to me, it becomes, do you think that maybe we've gotten so caught up in picking whose plantation we want to fight for that we never really fight for ourselves? Where do we live? We know where Master Trump lives. We know where Master Biden lives. Where do Black people live? And who are we, right? We know what Republican values are. It's pretty clear. We know what Democratic values are. I think that when we define a lot of things to be racism, right? You'll hear a Republican say Democrats are racist because of boom, boom, boom. And you're like, yeah, they are. And then a Democrat will say, well, Republicans are racist because of boom, boom, boom. And you're like, yeah, that is racist, right? But at the end of the day, the question to me is, who the hell are we? What are our values? Right? And I lead this into earlier. Etan was talking about Obama's consistent advocacy for the LGBT community. I don't know if that's a core value of the Black community. I don't think that's something that we as Black people, when we're sitting around here, there's probably gay people right here inside this space, but that's not the first topic of conversation that comes up. We don't hate you. You're welcome to be here, but that's not what we're going to spend a lot of time talking about. So it seems we get caught in other people's agendas. So who are we as Black people, and why have we not moved forward? And how can we start moving forward maybe by shaping and figuring out who the heck we are. Can you speak to that a little bit? Faye is muted. There you go. Okay, there we go.
There we go.
All right.
Absolutely. It circles back to what I spoke about earlier about what's wrong in politics, and it has to do with how we do politics and our approach to politics, where it pertains to Republican values and Democrat values. It seems that we not only don't really have a clear understanding about politics and how they're supposed to work, but we're also not very clear in our pursuits. We seem to have these conflicting, competing visions about what's the best political path for our race. There's a split. It's created this divide, not a divide necessarily between white supremacy or white people and Black people, but a divide between Black people and Black people. We're split. We have circumstances that has caused some of us to participate in insurgency politics rather than mainstream politics. And what I mean by that is we have these certain moments where we take action to challenge the political system, while at other instances we participate in actual political processes, And with that being said, again, a lot of that is what affects, or should I say influences, our approach to politics. I think what we need to all get together is trying to understand Black political behavior. When you brought up Barack Obama, that was a perfect example to me, especially since he was considered like the key opinion or the key leader amongst Black people for 8 years. He got over 90% of our votes, and his status really is something I feel like is a study for the books, because it provides us an opportunity to examine how Black leaders actually shape political activity. Specifically in how Obama, which I noticed was brought up earlier, in terms of certain speeches he would make. If you notice, and I always use this as an example, the recession of 2008. Of course, Black people and Black communities were impacted the most. The best response that Obama could have done, and this is actually the part where I began to just go, okay, he's not for Black people at all. The best response he could have done was include a Black plan in the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009. He did not do that. If you look at a lot of his speeches, particularly during his 2012 campaign, you will see that he used certain words during that run, such as vulnerable Americans, minority Americans. Mind you, these are buzzwords that both political campaigns, Republican and Democrat, right now today are using. They got that from him, because those weren't buzzwords that the George Bush administration would use. But Barack Obama used them all the time, especially where it pertained to the recession of 2008 and who was affected most. And I felt like the economic recovery, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009, I think it's called the ARRA, anyone could look it up. We were basically left out. And it's a shame, because for as long as Black people have sought to seek racial equality in the United States, and we look to him to do that, he really didn't look out for us at all. And in this is a political space we don't examine very often. It's our approach to politics, understanding politics, and our pursuit of exactly what it is we want. Because right now we have two conflicting visions. I'm hearing it from left and right. You got people on the right, Black people on the right. You got Black conservatives who don't agree with Black conservatives. You hear Brother Tariq, who just brought up how he doesn't really feel, connected to Candace Owens' message. I don't either, and I'm a conservative. Well, I would be considered a conservative, as I consider myself more of a traditionalist, by political standards. But you have the same thing with the left. You have the BLM left. Then you have the regular left. And what I mean by BLM left is they're strictly LGBT. They are. They have a completely different ideology. They have a completely different message where it pertains to the nuclear Black family, the structure, political structures and everything. And it's mostly white led. So I think that what we just really have to do is examine our political behavior, and exactly where we want to link and where everything could connect to move us into the space where we're all on the same page and we're working towards the same objective and the same goal.
Okay, let me ask you, Etan. Okay, so he's Etan and then Tariq. But Etan, I'm gonna ask a question, and then you can feel free to share whatever you'd like to share on that. So I remember when Obama first got elected, and one of his earlier critics, besides Cornel West, was also Yvette Carnell. I remember Yvette used to say, and she was right about this, that if Obama does nothing for Black people, then he is setting a precedent. That if he allows, if he just says I'm the president of everybody, I'm not here for Black folks, then if he gets away with that, and we let him get away with that, then the next president is gonna say, oh well, the Black guy didn't do anything. And remember, even Mitch McConnell. Remember, Mitch McConnell said, "Well, Obama doesn't agree with reparations, so why should we?" Right? And now I want to connect that to an argument I've heard from a lot of people that says, we got to get Biden into office, got to get Trump out. That's what's most important. We can hold them accountable once they get into office. And I hear that, and if that were really true, I would believe it. But honestly, I believe that as much as I believe Trump when he put out the Platinum Plan. Like you're gonna buy, a new Mercedes for every Black person, $500 billion. Yeah, right. So I'm gonna ask you this. If it were true, I would believe it. But we didn't hold Obama accountable. So what do you think could be done, and why should I believe it if I should? And also, what do you think could be done to make sure that we do hold them accountable if Biden wins? I think Biden's gonna win the election. So what do you think?
Well, I think first of all, I think we have to categorize it accurately when we talk about Obama. I think Obama definitely deserves criticism, but I was actually, and I can speak from experience, I was a part of his fatherhood initiative. I was a part of, My Brother's Keeper. I know why it was particularly formulated to help Black men. He wasn't one of the people who didn't put an emphasis on Black men. Now, when I say, did he put an emphasis on Black men in his speeches or Black people in his speeches the way that he did the LGBT community? No, I will say to be the first one to say that. But I will say that he had to work different angles. And I even asked them about this in particular of why they didn't. And they had to work different angles to help Black people. I wasn't happy with why they had to do it, but that's what they had to do. The Fatherhood Initiative, I was literally a part of it. When I had my fatherhood book and doing panels all over the place, he pulled me in. I like what you're doing, brother. Let's keep trying to uplift Black men. That's what he said to me. So so when we categorize him, it can't be where, but that's also the risk of not saying things publicly. That's like saying, like Michael Jordan didn't do things publicly. He did things quietly. I played with him for 2 years. I saw the things he did quietly. But if you don't let nobody see you doing it publicly, then people assume you don't do anything. And they say, okay, you're not part of this community at all. So I get specifically, why it happens. But in dealing with the holding people accountable, I think we also have to categorize Biden and Trump. They're not two of the same. I think it's really, you can look at the debates and see, all right, so the question was, and I'm paraphrasing, but in the last debate, the question was, as Black people have different hurdles to be able to, in America, what do you think? You saw Biden's answer, and then you saw Trump's answer. Biden recognized that there are differences. Biden recognized that there are different things that we need to put in place. We need to hold police officers accountable. He said all those things. Now, were they just words? They could have been, but at least the presentation of the words. Now, we go to Trump. Trump said that I am the best, that I've done the most for Black people since Abraham Lincoln. I did this stuff for the HBCUs, which wasn't true. I did this stuff for all Black people love me. I look at it, I'm the least racist person. That was his response. So when you're looking at two different responses to the same question, it's clear they're not the same. You know what I mean? When I'm looking at Trump, now take that from word. Words is one thing. You can only put so much weight with words. Now let's look at the plans. Okay, let's look at the plans. We talked about this, Dr. Watkins, when I did the interview with you. Biden had the plan for Black America on his website. Okay, now he did not articulate it out of his mouth the way that he should have from day one, which was an error on his part, and Kamala Harris. From day one, he should have said, listen, I have this history with my orchestration and the support of the crime bill. This is what I'm specifically going to do to remedy that. But he didn't do that. He just listed things on his website, which specifically was answering. It's like the answer to the crime bill, but he didn't say that out of his mouth. And I think that was incorrect on his part. Now I'm looking at Trump's platinum plan, and it's a one-pager. You know what I mean? It's not like it's a deep, intricate plan. It's a one-pager. And I'm looking at the things that he says, and I'm like, wait a minute. So I remember I said, before I go out and just criticize someone, I want to just do research first, so I know exactly what it is that I'm criticizing before I criticize. So I'm looking at his plan. He said that he wanted to make Juneteenth a national holiday. That's one of the things he said on there. And I'm like, wait a minute, you could have done that a long time ago. You know what I mean? To make Juneteenth a national holiday, that's not something, I mean, and there's been senators, I think it was Senator Rob Johnson, if I'm saying right, he blocked it from the Senate when they did it. Trump didn't say anything then. So maybe he didn't know about Juneteenth. All right, maybe I'll give him that. Maybe he's just learning about Juneteenth. He didn't know. He doesn't really strike me to be somebody that's real learned. I'll give him that. So then you go to the anti-lynching bill, right, that he has in his platinum plan. And so I'm like, wait a minute. You know, when who's Rand Paul, you know, he blocked it in the Senate. You didn't say anything then. Now lynching, that's not something that you need to be educated on. I'll give you Juneteenth. A lot of white people didn't know about Juneteenth. I'll give you that. A lot of black people didn't know about Juneteenth. All right, I'll give you that one. But an anti-lynching bill, that should have been done a long time ago. Why would you put that in your platinum plan for black people? And you could have easily done that. You know what I mean? Then he goes into, saying he's going to prosecute the KKK and Antifa. You know what I mean? That's what he has in the plan. And I'm like, wait a minute now. These are the same people you said were very fine people. You gave the nod, the wink to with the Proud Boys, stand by and stand, all of that stuff. I'm like, so I'm not seeing anything concrete, even in the platinum plan that he's saying. Then the amount that he's going to give black people. Okay. But I'm just going down the list, but I don't. So with your answer, how do we hold either side accountable? Because Biden could just list a whole lot of stuff in his website that he has absolutely no thought to be able to follow through on. The same way that, maybe it's just a better laid out plan than what Trump laid out. Because what Trump laid out, I'm like, wait a minute, this don't even seem feasible. Like, what? You're just throwing things out.
Well, I want to hear from the other side too. Like, so Tariq, you heard that, right? And I'll tell you, when I see things like, we're going to prosecute the KKK or Proud Boys stand by, I looked up a video of the Proud Boys. The Proud Boys I ain't heard about, you tell me Proud Boys killed 10,000 black people last month, then I consider them a threat, but I haven't seen any of this, right? A lot of the threats that they talk about, like if you count the number of black people getting lynched every year, I imagine it's less than 50, right? But you count the number of black people that are in prison right now, who were incarcerated under the 3 strikes law. You're talking about hundreds of thousands. You talk about,
but Dr. Walker, but I gotta say just real quick, the FBI director, Christopher Wray, that's his name, the FBI director. He is on record saying that the biggest threat to terrorism in this country is white domestic terrorism. So
okay,
he listed that. So
we can let it out, right? It is the big. Let's assume it's the biggest threat, right? It's not a realized threat, though, right? Because I haven't heard about a Proud Boy getting on the subway in Harlem and murdering everybody. You know what I mean? Like, so, but we know it's a threat, right? But so I'll say this, and y'all, I mean, I can't even pretend like I don't have a bias. So, but I really want to hear your point of view on that, so that everybody can talk about that. When I just looked at the plan, I was like, okay, I get all this other stuff, the anti-lynching bill, which you probably maybe should have passed it 100 years ago. But I'm looking at the 500 billion, right? I'm thinking, okay, if we get 500 billion, we can get our own security. We KKK roll up in, a well-to-do black neighborhood. We got strong brothers that can defend the community. So Tariq, go ahead and lay your point of view on this. So Etan laid out his perspective on it, and I think that should be heard. So what is your thought on that, Tariq? What goes through your mind?
Well, real quick, I just have to correct something, because a lot of people seem to think because I voted for Trump, I'm like, be on the right wing. The right wing's the way to go for black people. I've never said that. I've always advocated for African Americans to be independent, because our political reality will never change if we have this mindset where we go all in on one side and ignore the other side. If we are independent, we bring both agendas to both sides.